Today we're going to be adding another module to our Z180 computer. This, which we have built up in the last few videos, gives us two cards. One card for the processor and one card for the ROM and the RAM. As you can see, we do have plenty of expansion capability in this, and what we're going to be adding today is a new board. This is a real-time clock board. This will allow our computer to keep track of the date and the time. So this card supports the RC bus and comes from Stephen Cousins. The kit is supplied with a well laid out manifest of parts to allow you to easily identify each part included in the project. And the board itself is silk screened to tell you where each of the components are supposed to go. So let's make a start and put the lowest profile components in first. If you've assembled kits like this before, you know that it will involve using a soldering iron. As always, care should be taken with a soldering iron because it is indeed very hot. So let's make a start and have a look at the components. So we have the small component into which the battery will actually go. Additionally, we have our edge connectors, and we have a number of discrete components. So as always, I'm going to put in the lowest profile components first. So we have 5 capacitors, so let's just sort those out first of all. And we'll put these in first. And this is the final one. Just bend these legs so they don't fall out. And we'll solder these in place. And it's always useful to have one of these holders in place to hold the components while you do the soldering. And always a good visual inspection is recommended to make sure you haven't missed anything. They look fine, so now we'll just trim off the excess. Next we'll put in our sockets for the ICs. Now we have 5 of these to position, 3 different sizes. So we'll put the small one in first, making sure we orientate it correctly. Now it's always handy to have elastic bands on hand to make sure these will actually hold down these while you put the first solder joints in place. Now when it comes to the fiddly soldering, I do use a pair of these. These magnifying glasses are ideal for the close-up work. Now I'm just going to solder the corners of each of these to make sure that they're held in place and are level before I make all the other solder joints. Now that they're held in place, we can now remove our elastic bands. And as always, a quick visual check to make sure that we haven't missed anything. Next we have a resistor network to put in, which should go in just here. And again, we want to hold this in place while we're soldering. That's 2 joints done, so we can now complete the rest. Making quite good progress. Now we have the edge connectors to put into place, and we also have a very small crystal. Right, now that's in place. Just solder our crystal in. So our circuit board is coming along quite nicely. Next we will put in the holder for the battery. Seems to hold in place okay. Let's try soldering that in. There's our battery in place quite nicely. Now we have the edge connector to put into place. And we have the long edge connector. And we have two smaller connectors. This one in here. And we have another one in here by the looks of it. For the jumpers. See if we can do this. Right, that's our first edge connector in place. That looks fine. And again, quick visual inspection to make sure we haven't missed anything. So that leaves the big edge connector along the end. Looks fairly straight. So we can now go ahead and put the rest in. Now, it's always good to take your time when you're soldering multiple joints like this to save making any mistakes. Right, there we have all the joints completed. And again, a quick visual inspection to make sure we haven't soldered two pins together, which is always a risk when the pins are quite adjacent to each other. Also to make sure that we haven't missed soldering a pin that's supposed to be soldered. Time taking making these checks is always worthwhile because it saves time debugging the hardware later. Right, all we need to do now is to put in our ICs. I think we're done with the soldering arm for the moment. So let's identify each of the ICs. Now, there was only one of this size, so this is a very small one. So we'll put that one in first, making sure to align it correctly. That one has gone in very easily. We have two ICs of the same size, so we'll just double check to see what's printed on them. And compare that against what's the silkscreen on the board. Sure we have it orientated correctly. And this should snap into position quite easily. And the same with our second one. And that's that one in quite nicely. So the last of the two ICs. These again are different chips. So this is the 74688, which is this one, making sure to orientate it correctly. And that one sits in nicely. Right, one last one to go. And that's the last of the ICs in place. So that's the board assembled. We need to check about the jumper settings. And I'll need to obtain a battery for the unit itself. But as far as the assembly is concerned, it looks as though we are now complete. Now we have one completed board. Now the jumpers that go in here will actually set the address of the board, so we'll need to look that up, check to make sure we're not having any conflict with the addresses in the existing system. But we'll do a bit of research on that and we'll get them set up. In the next video, we will plug the RTC board into the backplane and see how we can access the clock. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching.